Welcome back to International Star Media, the Gold Star Standard, at the Gold Star Standard. Reactions, reviews, and news you can use. Once again, I am your host, International Yada, for the records and the dollars. And hey, check it out. Life in prison. We're going to start this off by saying, if you are charged and found guilty of the crime, human trafficking / sex trafficking, you could possibly receive up to life in prison. We went over this time and time again. Learn from the mistakes of others. Whatever you into, know what you're getting into. Know the consequences of your actions before you deal with anything. Life in prison. Force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence can get you up to life in prison when dealing with the crime, sex trafficking. Cash Out. We're going to get straight off into this. The rapper Cash Out was just found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Here we go. Atlanta rapper Cash Out gets life sentence after RICO sex trafficking conviction. It's a serious business. And we telling y'all time and time again, you see it right here, life sentence. It's not a joke, it's not a game. From hit records to sitting in court fighting for his life to receiving a life sentence for sex trafficking conviction. Going over this time and time again. Hopefully somebody out there can learn from the mistakes of him, learn from the mistakes of others, and save yourself from this fate. Let's continue. Rapper Cash Out, whose real name is John-Michael Gibson, was sentenced to life in prison plus 70 years on Monday after being found guilty in his RICO and sex trafficking case. Show you how serious that is. He was sentenced to life plus 70 years. On Friday, the 34-year-old artist received a guilty verdict in Atlanta court. According to International Star Media, the life sentence plus 70 years will run concurrently. His mother, Linda Smith, was sentenced to 30 years, and his cousin, Tyrone Taylor, was sentenced to life in prison plus 70 years. You see the seriousness of this? Him taking down his family. Not just him was affected. His mother received 30 years in prison, Linda Smith. And you will hear from her at the end of the video. Also, his cousin Tyrone Taylor was sentenced to life in prison plus 70 years, the exact same charge that Cash Out received. Life in prison plus 70 years. Force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence could get you life in prison. Don't do it. Take heed. Very interesting things were said in this case. Let's continue. Gibson is known for his 2014 platinum hit Cashing Out and She Twerking. Y'all remember that. He released one studio album in 2014, Let's Get It, and 6 mixtapes. Where is that video at? Y'all remember that? Here we go.
Don't get mad.
Y'all remember this right here. And she twerking.
She's really gone. She's really gone, man.
See me grabbing on my toilet. She told me smack her on the booty.
Her booty.
She said I got too many hoes. She said I got too many shows. But she twerking.
Y'all remember that right there. Man. Hits. And now sentenced to life in prison. Tragic turn of events. Let's continue. His career was stalled when he was arrested in a Georgia prostitution sting in June 2019. So this case has been going on for a while, 2019, for him to just be found guilty 6 or 7 years later. Tragic end to a story like this, where he had hits on the radio and now sitting in prison along with his mother for life, along with his cousin for life. Don't throw your life away. We say that time and time again, but we really mean that over here at International Star Media, the Gold Star Standard, at the Gold Star Standard. Do not throw your life away getting involved in something that you know nothing about. It's a very thin line between pimping and sex trafficking. But let's continue. We can get off into that too in this video. The trial, which began this past June, brought forth the allegations that Gibson, his cousin, and his mother had forced women into sex work when they operated the House of Horrors. They were also said to have coordinated the sale of women and corresponding payments, prosecutors said, presented text message from 8 different phones as evidence. It's a lot of evidence. You got stuff in these phones, whatever's in these phones, whatever you post, whatever you write, the pictures that you put up on the social media can and will be used against you in a court of law. You keep seeing it time and time again. It's right here. They used 8 different phones as evidence. Y'all better take heed to this. This is real serious out here. And they are playing no games. Here we go. This has been going on for 7 years, Fulton County prosecutor Earlene Winfrey said to the Atlanta courtroom on Friday. This ain't just straight pimping. This is trafficking. And this is different. They made a clear distinction between what pimping is and what sex trafficking is. Once again, Fulton County prosecutor Earlene Winfrey said to the Atlanta courtroom on Friday, this ain't just straight pimping, this is trafficking. When you bring into play the elements force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence into what you think pimping is, oh, you just turn that into sex trafficking. You just went from pimping to sex trafficking. And when it comes to the law, that's a whole different spectrum. Let's continue. She added that though they were pimping, for sure, she said they was for sure pimping. It was pimping going on. This is what the prosecutor said. She added, though, that they were pimping for sure. It was the force and coercion of the operation that made it trafficking. want y'all to take that in for a second. Although they were pimping for sure, it was the force and coercion of the operation that made it trafficking. They got him a life sentence. They got his cousin a life sentence. They got his mother 30 years in prison. Pay attention. Pay attention. Here we go. Gibson first faced charges in June 2023. His legal team claimed that the victims were pushed to testify. In closing arguments, his team argued that the women involved were not forced, because that's the only way that he could have beat this life sentence, if he proved that they were not forced, that fraud was not used, that the element of coercion was not in the equation, violence and or the threats of violence. That's 4 different hoops you got to jump through to beat this one case. This is serious business, and it's no joke. You better know what you're doing while you're out there doing what you're doing. Here we go. His mother claims that she was unaware of the trafficking, but prosecutors cited payment receipts linking her to the offenses. This included a leased residence where some of the victims were said to have been housed. Additionally, witnesses claimed that Smith had engaged in prostitution herself. So they had witnesses and so-called receipts that linked the crimes back to the mom, to Linda Smith, to Cash Out's mom. The prosecutor obviously brought up the proof of that because she was found guilty, including a leased residence that was in her name that they worked out of. They said, the victim said they worked out of this house, and they also claimed that the mom, Linda Smith, was also breaking them off. You know? Here we go. It's not about the victim's actions in a sex trafficking case, Winfrey told jurors on Friday. It's about what they did. They said it's not about the victims, the women. They're going to totally throw that out. What the so-called victims were doing. They said it's about what they did, using the elements of force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence. I hope you listen and paying attention to this, because this really is serious business. Sex trafficking / human trafficking. It's a fine line between sex trafficking, using force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence, and pimping. They'll get caught crossing that line. Here we go. Linda Smith in court at the sentencing.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
I'd like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Actually speaking today.
I'm sorry. I'd like to say thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. Not a day, ever since I turned myself in, I was always prayerful for the victims. I take accountability. I pray for them continuously. I pray for the district attorney's office. I pray for you, Judge, because that's what God requires me to do.
I want y'all to remember this. That she throwing herself to the mercy of the court and thanking everybody and telling her how God made her feel. They don't give a damn about that. They sentenced this woman to 30 years in prison. for sex trafficking, force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence. They sentenced her son to 70 years in prison. Life plus 70 years in prison. They sent her nephew life plus 70 years in prison. Don't throw your life away. Do not throw your life away. Think about what you're doing before you do it. Think about the outcome. All outcomes that can happen. And can you handle that? It's very serious. Let's continue.
And that's what I truly feel in my heart, because I love God so much and I'm so full of joy. That Friday, when the verdict came in, I wasn't angry at all. Not at all. I almost thought something was wrong with me. So that Saturday, well, the night before, let me back up. I talked to God like I always do. And he said, I must give my testimony to the young ladies in New Beginnings. And I said, Father God, I don't want to put my business out there. That's my business. But Father God said, your business is my business, and my agenda is your agenda. He said for me, which I always do, I respect authority. And Sergeant Ball was on the shift in my pod. So I had to speak to her. I was kind of afraid to speak to her. But Father God reminded me, he said, I'm by your side, do not fear. So I pressed the button and I asked, could I speak to her, because I knew that in order to get my testimony.
I want to say this. I wasn't going to play this all the way through because they were found guilty and that was the end of the case. I played this through so y'all can see the seriousness of this. This is how you don't want to be in court. Begging and pleading for your life. Begging and pleading for God to save you. For anybody to save you. And you going through something like this. You throwing yourself on the mercy of the courts. If you're found guilty of sex trafficking / human trafficking and found guilty of the elements force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence, you can possibly receive life in prison. You can possibly receive life in prison. If you're dealing with an underage minor involved in the crimes, human trafficking / sex trafficking, they don't need the elements of force, fraud, coercion, violence, or the threats of violence. They don't need to prove those elements. If you are found guilty with dealing with a minor, you will receive life without the possibility of parole in prison. Take heed. Pay attention.
There's authority that I must talk to. So I went out and she asked me what was going on. And I said, Sergeant Paul, I'm asking, like, during devotion, will I be able to give my testimony? Because that's what God has said for me to do. It wasn't a choice. God doesn't give you that. He gives commandments. And I never want to be disobedient to God. She said, Miss Smith, she said, you cannot be disobedient to God. So if you give your testimony and it just saves one person, just one person, you've done what God asked you to do. So I gave my testimony to about 35 women in the New Beginnings pod with me. God was speaking through me. I give him all the praise and glory. It's not me at all. My attorney, she's been great. She's been great. And she asked me when she came Sunday to speak to me what I would like her to say. And she has done that. And I just said, give me an opportunity just to speak to the judge just a little bit. I'm so sorry for the victims, and I pray for them and will continue to pray. Because God says, if you love me, you love others. And when I pray wholeheartedly. I didn't think I could do it in the beginning. I said, God, I don't know if I can do this. But he knew exactly what he wanted me to do.
I'm going to pause this and say this again. If found guilty of sex trafficking / human trafficking, you could possibly receive up to life in prison. The tears won't matter. The pleading won't matter. The testimonies in court won't matter. She was found guilty and received 30 years in prison. Her son was found guilty and received life in prison plus 70 years. Her nephew was found guilty and was sentenced to life in prison plus 70 years. Let's continue.
He chose me to do this. I couldn't even stop teaching the word if I wanted to. That's not even an option with me. Whatever you wish it to be, I'm okay with that. Because I will continue to spread the good news wherever I go. Because that's the path that God put me on. It's been with me for a long time. I just didn't take notice to it. I love what I do. I love spreading the good news. I love showing love to all, and I mean it wholeheartedly. I'm not angry at all. And I thank you for this opportunity. Miss Winfrey, I thank you. I thank everyone.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'm going to be asking that you sentence her to a period of 20 years to serve 5 with the balance on probation. The state has listed their conditions. I have no objection to the conditions that they have listed, so I ask that those conditions be the conditions that this court sentence her to. And that she be allowed to serve the balance of her 20 years on probation outside of that 5 years.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tragic end to that story. I suggest that you spread the good news and treat people right before you're in a situation like this. That might help you stay out of a situation like this. Okay, here we go. Cash Out, the son. Here we go.
Okay.
So before I ask the court for what I'd like to ask the court to do, can I have my client address the court?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Good morning today, Your Honor.
Good morning.
I want to start out by thanking you for giving us a fair trial. I want to thank the jurors for the amount of time that they put in to judge this trial. This time being on this trial, I was able to see how the jurors are put in a tough position to, sit there and judge someone's life, and, it's a hard decision, and I felt like they made the wrong judgment. I've done things in my life. I'm not perfect.
Now, this is after the verdict came back guilty, right before the sentencing, right before he received life in prison plus 70 years. You do not want to be in this situation.
But the things I've been accused of, I know that I haven't done those things. I know it's typical for a person to come up here and, show remorse to, crimes that they have done, but I can only show remorse to the people that I know that was in this trial, which is.
He said he ain't got no remorse for
Not
them
remorse
people.
on behalf of
He said he ain't got no remorse for them people that accused him of this falsely. He's standing on it, that he is not guilty, and that he was found guilty by the jury. If they find you guilty of sex trafficking, if they find you guilty of the elements force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence, you could receive a life sentence in prison. Once again, he received life in prison plus 70 years. Take heed. Pay attention. Hey, everything is not for everybody. Everything is not for everybody.
Did anything to them, because if you know me, and people who really know me know that I wouldn't force anybody to do anything. I met women, I dated women who were doing escort or whatever, however people want to look.
According to him, these were all adult consensual sex workers. According to him, they lied. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. It's a possibility somebody could have lied on him. It's a possibility somebody could lie on you. You better know what you're doing. You better know who you're dealing with. You better know the laws. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Meaning, if you didn't know all the ins and outs of the laws, if you didn't know that if found guilty of human trafficking, if found guilty of sex trafficking, if found guilty of force, fraud, coercion, violence, and or the threats of violence, you could receive life. That's on you. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Take heed. Pay attention. Subscribe and keep following International Star Media, the Gold Star Standard at the Gold Star Standard. Because we're going to bring it to you real, live, and direct. Here we go.
Look at it from a more standpoint, but who was doing these things as a grown woman. I've only dealt with grown women. Nothing was forced. Nothing was coerced or anything of that nature. If you notice, before this trial, no woman can say anything about me before this trial. If you notice, before this indictment, no woman can say anything about me before this indictment. I get the situations that people are put in when they're faced with a certain type of crime or a certain type of time, and they're bullied into this situation.
So according to him and his team, these girls got caught up in other crimes or sex trafficking or sting or whatever, and they was forced to bring him down. Pressure was put on him to tell on him. This is what he's saying. This is what I assume he is saying. That pressure was put on these women to testify against him and to say he forced us to do this. I was coerced by this man. He used violence and or threats of violence to put us in this situation. This is what was said. And that's all it takes to get you a life sentence. All it takes is for one of those women to testify against you, to say this is what you did. It's serious business. Everything is not for everybody. You heard the prosecutor in court. It's a fine line between pimping and what they consider sex trafficking. Sex trafficking could get you life in prison. Sex trafficking / human trafficking can get you life in prison or up to life in prison plus 70 years. Take heed.
Put the blame on someone, or to put the blame on Cash Out, or to put the blame on someone who's at the top. That's why I didn't really fault them for their decision. I didn't fault for making her decision during a proffer. She just had a child. Mind you, she was just on video call with me while being incarcerated. I don't fault for doing the things she did with her proffer, because mind you, she was facing a certain amount of time handling her probation in different cases that she's on. I don't fault people for making accusations.
So according to him, this person was on, this accuser was on probation, fighting her probation, and they coerced her into testifying against him. If this is the case, this is sure tragedy. This is for sure a tragedy.
Because I'm a man that typically let women leave on their own behalf. Never held them in prison or held them in slavery or said you can't leave me or you can't do this. Every woman you seen come on this stand showed you that they left and came back.
Hey, take heed to them words that he's saying right there. She want to go, let her go. Show her to the door. Let her go. In a lot of cases, don't let her come back. But that's all on you. I'll pay attention now.
Willingly on their own. What I mean by that, they left on their own and they came back willingly on their own. During this trial, I was able to see, how valuable life is and how valuable the people that you hang around or the people that you even date or the people that you even know, how valuable it is to judge their character. Sometimes I let people stay around who I knew was going to affect a situation that I had going on. So I don't, and for the people who came to this trial that I never met a day in my life, never had any contact with them, never had a text message with them, never had an interaction with them, don't even know where most of these stories came from. It's baffling. Never forced a woman to commit a sexual act. I've been traveling all around the world from here to Dubai, and you would never hear a woman say that I forced them to do anything sexual or commit a rape with anybody. I don't hang around people that do things of that nature. I feel like, and somebody asked me this the other day, it was like, every time I see your head high and you always smiling, because when you have that confidence, it takes me back to the Bible. When you have that confidence and you know you can be falsely accused of things, Jesus was falsely accused, a lot of the prophets were falsely accused. You don't have that emotion like you've done something. You know, so if you seen me with my head high, or if you seen me smiling, it's because I know at the end of the day, through Jesus Christ, the Most High will always give you the actual judgment. So I really thank you for providing us a fair trial. Just me getting to know you during trial, I was like, you know, she's just the judge. But when you sit 12 people in that panel and you know, have them, you know, judge our lives and, you know, put them in a position to judge our lives, you know, it takes you back to, once again, the Bible, when people had to judge these prophets' lives. And I say, if you know me, you actually know me. There's plenty of people that know me in this world. There's plenty of people that know me in this jail. There's plenty of people that know me where I'm from. Like I say, once again, I'm not perfect. I come from certain areas. I come from, you know, certain environments. I come from doing things in my past life before the music. But I'm here to tell you that if you sat in this trial and you paid attention to this trial, before these dates, no woman could ever say, I done those things to them. Before these dates, you can go on my Instagram and see these women enjoying themselves, having their own things, living their own life. Before these dates, I can say you had these women that never had anything to say about me. Before this indictment, before the RICO, you had these women actually talking to me while I was incarcerated. I've been incarcerated for 4 years, and these women are interacting with me. These women who took the stand and supposedly scared of me, or monsters, or took these, or I'm a monster, or took these proffers.
You hear that? The same women that testified against him took proffer agreements. The same women that testified against him wrote him while he was in jail, sent him money while he was in jail, accepted phone calls from him while in jail. He wasn't being accused of talking bad to him over the phone in any threatening types of way. These are the people that testified. Take heed. Pay attention.
This wasn't the case before they was indicted. So from my perspective, I feel like some people can get bullied into a situation that they really don't really want to do. And I'm sitting here just holding my head high and just, you know, feeling that one day the truth will come out. One day the truth will come out on my situation. One day the truth will come out on this rape allegation, that these things never happened. And when you see a person get up on that stand and put their hand on the Bible and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that means you have to be perfect like you're Jesus. You have to be perfect on that stand. You can't show a flaw. And that's a tough one. It's a tough one for me because I had flaws in my life. So you have to tell the complete truth on that stand. And I got up there and see people put their hand on that Bible and not tell the complete truth. And that's baffling. But at the end of the day, I put my trust in the Most High. I put my trust in the universe to bring out the truth. To bring out the truth of these people who made these allegations. To me, it's like you have no heart. You have no heart. And I know people want me to stay in line or walk a toe, but when you're speaking something truthfully and you're speaking from the heart and you know that this is not your character, something must be said. And I just wanted to address the court and give my perspective on the things that I felt during this trial and the judgment that I felt that the jurors gave us was not the correct judgment. And it will show.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. All right.
Wow. Hard pill to swallow right there. It's a dirty game. International Star Media, the Gold Star Standard, at the Gold Star Standard. Reactions, reviews, and news you can use. Once again, I am your host, International Yada, for the records and the dollars. Check it out. Don't throw your life away. Learn from the mistakes of others and do not throw your life away. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. And we will see you on the next one.